Okay. Hello, this is Janetta Billheimer, and I am here with Tasha Dixon. She is going to be talking tonight about inspiring learning. She's a homeschool mom, and um, I am really grateful to her for helping us out tonight. Our speaker wasn't able um, to be here, and she just said she could do it, and I am just really grateful to her tonight. Um, so welcome, Tasha.
Thank you.
So, inspiring learning. Can you some tech things going on here? Um, okay, so inspiring learning. Do you have some favorite ways that you inspire your children that you found work well for you?
Yes. Yeah. So I was kind of trying to think of, excuse me, some different things that we have done over the last couple of years that we've homeschooled to help our kids. And we are definitely by no means like, really far along in the process or anything like that. Our kids are 6, 8, and 10. And so I have one that just started, and then we have one that's kind of in the second grade-ish and fourth grade-ish. Um, so some of the things that we kind of, as I was thinking, and I even kind of talked to my kids and asked them, what are some things that we do to kind of help you guys to want to learn? Um, and the biggest thing that, so the first thing that we came up with was being an example. Um, when when you are trying to teach your children, um, the best thing that you can do is to be an example. So one example that I have is of reading. We have always loved reading to our kids. We started when they were young, probably about newborn age actually, and I would just sit down and read out loud to them. I didn't necessarily show them pictures or anything. I would just read. And that was really important. That developed some important skills in them. It developed some communication, it developed language and things like that. So that's really important. Now when our kids see us read, it's a little bit easier for them to follow along. So another thing is I actually started writing a book, and as I sit and I write my book, my son came to me one night, my 10-year-old, and he said, "Mom, I would really like to start writing a book too." So he sat down and came up with an idea and started writing this book of his. And so that's something, you can kind of see how being that example, like the kids just naturally tend to follow your lead. So if you sit in front of the TV all day and watch TV, what are your kids naturally going to do? Well, they're naturally going to want to sit and watch TV. So for us, that's kind of our biggest thing is being the example and making sure that we are building little stepping stones for our kids that they can follow along and that they can try and want to learn.
I love
So
that. I love that because you're talking about example, and it's not just setting them down in front of something and saying, learn this, um, but you're showing them how to be in life,
yes,
how to live life
yes,
to the fullest. Write a book,
exactly.
or whatever you feel drawn to do, following your own path.
Mhm. Yes, it's been fun because I've tried to learn things over the years. I mean, I've taken classes actually. I've done photography classes and different things like that I've personally taken. And so it's kind of fun. And like right now I'm actually enrolled in my college classes. And so my kids see me do my homework and they see me study and things. And so they know how important education is to me, and that not just that, but they look at me and go, well, geez, if my old mom can sit down and learn something new, that means that we're constantly learning. That means that I don't just stop after, a certain point and I know everything. It means that we can constantly be learning and growing. So I think that that's really important to teach your kids too. And again, that's something that you don't just say to them, because how can you tell them something if you're not actually taking those actions? So taking the actions is very important.
Right. And I really love also what you talked about reading. I think that that's so powerful. to just read great books together.
Mhm.
Um, even more so than doing a lot of worksheets together, or just having the child sit there and do a lot of worksheets, but that you're spending that time and you are reading together. I think that has some of the biggest effect on children and on their education.
Yeah, definitely.
Them to great books, and that that books are important.
Mhm.
And not just any books, but finding those books that will help them to, be better people.
Yes, absolutely. So that kind of brings me to the second point, actually, is finding a way to teach them and finding ways that they learn that interest them. Um, and so, excuse me, one of the things that we noticed is, so our son, when he actually was in public school, one of the schools that he went to, they actually told him that he had to pick a book from this fantasy book section. And he picked a couple of different books and he just really struggled with it. And he could not get into any of them, but he was forced to pick a book out of that. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. But he was forced to pick a book out of that. And it was very frustrating for him because he just was not interested in those books. And so it actually drove him further away from wanting to read than anything else. So when we started homeschooling, it was very difficult to get him to read because he had no desire. He didn't want to read boring books. He didn't want to read books he didn't have interest in. And even to this day, we've been homeschooling for a little over 3 years now, almost 4 years. And it still is tough, but we finally, like this last semester, we have broken through something. And he has sat down and he read 2 books in January, 2 full chapter books in January, which is huge for us. That's a big breakthrough.
Yeah.
But getting to that point was so hard because we had to find books that interested him. And how do you do that when your kid doesn't really know exactly what they're interested in? Well, the biggest thing that we knew was my son has always had an obsession with animals and World War II. Those are the 2 things that he is so interested in. So we took that and we ran with it and we said, look, if you're interested in these things, let's find a World War II book. There is a great series that we started with, and it's made for kids, but it's the Survive, I Survived, I think is what it's called. And so it has all these I Survived books, and he was just completely enthralled in them. And so he loved it. And then he started realizing that he liked nature books. So it was like Call of the Wild and so we just kind of found these books that we thought that he would have a desire to read and ran with it. And that is really what took him to where he loves reading these things now. I mean, he still doesn't like certain books, but one step at a time, you do it little by little, and eventually you stretch them out like a rubber band and they will expand. But you have to start with the basics of what they kind of like. So finding things that interest them is extremely important, and not just with reading. I know I talked a little bit about this in another interview I did with you, but I also have a son who has some learning disabilities. And so the first couple of weeks or couple of months really of school, he really struggled. He had such a hard time understanding math and language arts. Those are the 2 hardest things for him. And so I had to really expand. It didn't matter what curriculums I had. It didn't really matter how hard I worked with him or fancy flashcards or anything like that. What helped him is finding what he liked to do. With our family, we love games. And so we started playing games. I did anything from Scrabble Junior to memory matches to matching ice cream cones and spelling out words. I mean, we did everything that we could and made a game out of it. We did like hangman style games, but with different stuff. So that is really within a month of us starting to do that, he started reading, which was huge improvements because that was not an easy task. For math, I actually have this here. For math, he was really struggling. He didn't understand the concept of skip counting. He didn't get it. So my husband actually bought the pieces for us to drill holes and make an abacus for him.
Oh,
And when he
wow.
did that, he was able to finally learn that, look, oh, there's 5, there's 10, 15, and so on and so forth. But he knew the makeup of it. He did it and it was hands-on for him. But that's something that he likes to do. He likes woodworking. So something like that, it's so easy to do. And something that's so major to a child who has a hard time learning or who has no interest in learning whatsoever. So, little things like that. And then we also, my daughter, she has no desire to learn either. She just kind of off in her own little world. She's like, I don't care about reading. I don't want to do that. Well, we bought a game called Not Parent Approved, and it actually is a parent approved game. It's kind of almost like a Cards Against Humanity or Apples to Apples type game where somebody says something and then you have to try and match, kind of make it funny type thing. Well, we got that, and my boys started playing it, and they were reading the cards. And my daughter goes, well, this isn't fair. They can read, and I want to read it. So that automatically sparked this I want to read. And now she's like really working toward reading. She loves writing, and she will write sentences upon sentences and spell words. And so, really, a huge part of inspiring a love of learning is finding things that your kids are interested in and working with it. You don't have to have fancy books or, all of these curriculums or anything to get your child to love learning. You just have to know your child and cater lessons toward them that they're going to enjoy.
I love that. Um, and what would you say, is, there are a lot of people who have started homeschooling because of, you know, COVID and all,
Mhm,
and they find that it's hard to bring their child home and then be doing, um, you know, like trying to get them to do their online studies and things.
mhm,
Um, what would you say to having been, homeschooled
mhm,
all of this time? I mean, I think that it would really be kind of a nightmare to have to um be the facilitator of somebody else's program. I don't know, and that who's trying to get it online and things. That there's a challenge going on here. Um, how do you keep that love of learning under these circumstances?
I feel for those parents that have to do the online stuff and that are brand new to homeschooling, and especially the ones that have been thrown into it because of COVID. I mean, a lot of those parents didn't make that decision right away that they had to, start homeschooling or anything. So I really feel for them. It is really tough. But it's just like anything when you start at home teaching, you have to get to know your child in the way that they're going to want to learn it. If all of their classes are online, then you kind of have to make it fun for them. You have to figure out a way to break up their day. I don't know how well reward systems work in other families. They don't work in my family. We've
At
tried
least for
sticker
very
charts.
long.
I know exactly. We've tried sticker charts. We've tried, everything in between, just trying to get our kids to stay on task and follow along. But the biggest thing that I have seen the most improvement with is consistency. The
Mhm.
more consistent you are with them, the more they find that okay, this assignment it's hard, it's the same thing over and over again. I don't know how to do this. I get bored. I would rather go play with my friends. I would rather do whatever, right? Well, everybody has to do something they don't want to do. So let's get it done and over with, and then let's do something fun. Let's do something fun. Now I don't know how much a lot of the parents have time for. I am a stay-at-home mom. I have a couple of side businesses that I do a few things with, but my main thing is I stay at home with my kids. And we actually do some of the online just for the charter school for the funding and stuff. So we still have some assignments we have to do online, but we do mostly everything else at home and just kind of, we work with the kids on the things that they like. Um, but we try and take some of those assignments and explore with them. So in different age groups, obviously they're learning different things, but exploration is huge. Like, for example, today we had we're learning about different rocks and geology. We're learning how, plate tectonics work and all of that kind of stuff. Well, we have done experiments upon experiments upon experiments. And it's like, okay, you do this worksheet and I promise we will do an experiment or we will do something fun. Well, today we were learning about different rocks and the cleavage and the fracture and the, all of the different stuff that you're supposed to learn about rocks for your classes. We were learning today. Well, to a lot of kids, that's actually kind of boring to just sit there and have to, like, okay, we'll try a little bit of a few things here and there, right? But
Especially
we
if you're
took it
reading
as
it out of a textbook or have this
yes.
lesson you've got to accomplish, and there aren't even any, rocks to be found because kids love rocks.
Oh, yes, exactly. So, what better opportunity than to send your kids outside and say, okay, go find some rocks and let's experiment with them. Let's take and, figure out how hard they are or how soft they are. And then not only that, but we took it a step further up. So, we had all the rocks that we were able to get, and we were able to experiment on them. And then we said, okay, well, what is the purpose of these rocks? And we actually related it to the kids and what they were doing, because a lot of the stuff that the kids learn nowadays is like, well, I'm not ever going to use any of that. Why? What's the point of me learning this? I don't understand what I'm going to use it for. So we took and said, okay, well, look, talc, this rock, this gem is a mineral, and you can use this for medicinal purposes. They use it in, XYZ type thing. And the kids found out that there was a rock that's in chalk that they used for chalk, and it made sense because it was soft. And it was like the light bulbs were just popping all over the place. And it made that worksheet, that one simple worksheet that they had to sit and do, so much fun. So it was very involved. I mean, you can do that with any of your assignments. Moms and dads just have to be able to sit and look at them for a few minutes and say, how can I make this entertaining, or not even entertaining, but somehow engage my children in this worksheet? Can they go out and explore something? If it's a social studies thing that, or a history thing where the pioneers came across the plains, or what is it called? Lewis and Clark, especially in Idaho. Lewis and Clark came across. We have so much in Idaho that you can just go to a museum. You can go to any of the spots on the side of the road and go explore them with your kids and
Do
learn
it.
firsthand.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And I think that there's an advantage that we have with homeschool, that we can go and we can do those things that it's hard to do with children when they are when you've got like 30 of them, and you can
mhm.
just go and you can explore these things and far surpass those worksheets.
Oh,
So yeah,
yes.
anyone can ask questions, by the way, anyone that's watching. And and you can just go ahead and ask Tasha anything that you're wanting to know. Just put it in the chat. Um, well, I guess down below, right? That we're on Facebook. So yeah, go ahead and you can put it right there below the video. But yeah, how, like, what a fantastic opportunity to be able to be homeschooling and to give your child that opportunity to be learning things that they otherwise wouldn't be able to see and do and learn. And sometimes I think also there are parents that are wanting to homeschool on their own terms, and so that's what they do. They don't necessarily continue on with what's going on in the classroom, that their child's classroom from before, and they just kind of they I mean, they've even started traveling or, things like that, and just going and learning together. I know my mom took us to Washington, D.C. one time when we were kids, and I think that the adults were a little worried that we would get behind the other class, the rest of our class. And
Mhm.
but remember being so glad to be learning all the things that we were learning. I loved it and knew that I was learning so many times more. Just even at that age, I understood that my education was just growing so much just by going, on this trip. So it didn't
Yeah.
even really matter what we were doing in the classroom or what we had missed. So
Mhm. That's right. I have definitely found that um you know I don't like the term behind or ahead because every child is so different. And I've found with my own children, especially my one with the learning disabilities, he is his own person and he's going to learn and grow at his own pace.
he has
And
his own
the
missions in life and his own
exactly.
person
Yes.
to be. And you can't just
Hmm.
lump everybody into one thing and then say, well, you're behind.
Yes.
Maybe behind in
Exactly.
the classroom, but
Hmm.
not behind in life.
No, if
Maybe
anything,
stunting them to be.
there's definitely skills that we've given him that have helped him be ahead in certain areas in life. Whereas, okay, maybe academically he might be a little bit behind. Um, but as far as other things go, he might be ahead. And
In his
that's
own
okay. I don't
education.
all kids seem to we started to get together with other kids in our area and do a homeschool group together. And so we get together 3 times a week and do a couple of lessons together. And it's been really fun to see that. But I was looking at my kids kind of lumped together. And then when we started doing this, I went, my kids really aren't doing that bad. They're actually doing okay. So, something that we do as parents, I think that we as parents naturally have the ability to teach our children, and we have that desire, and we want that for them. And so the more that we work with them and the more that we do with them, the more that they will learn. One of the things that I actually wrote down that I found very helpful for us, that when we were thinking about homeschooling, was that I actually wanted to learn alongside with my kids. And I didn't realize how much learning I was actually going to be doing for myself. um, but that has been something that has also inspired our children. So even if whether you're stuck at a computer or whether you're out exploring or whether you're, doing worksheets, whatever you're doing, um, learning alongside with your children is something that can help inspire them to want to learn too. So let me give you, it's kind of a weird example, but kind of funny. I learned the other day that Y at the end of a word, if it has one syllable, says I. And if it has two syllables, says another thing, and so on and so forth. So I was teaching this to my children and I went, oh my gosh, everything I have learned about spelling with Y at the end is starting to make sense. And like my kids are watching me go, oh my gosh, this light bulb's clicking. And so then they're going, wow, this is super cool. And, we had this whole conversation about it. And conversation is huge when you're homeschooling. Always have conversations and open conversations, whether it's about the book you're reading, whether it's about the pages that they're doing. No matter what you're doing, conversation is absolutely key in your child's education.
I think that's so interesting also how you mention your kids. So you're learning this together as a family. And I think, as homeschoolers, a lot of times we are teaching I guess, offering things to our children all at the same time. And so they're all kind of learning together these
Mhm.
things. And just realizing that it doesn't have to just be on this grade level, but somebody figured out that, in this school, because this school's, going to be doing it differently, but, um, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's really interesting that you can, I mean, and I've seen it happen in our own home, where you can just learn the same kinds of things in a different way for that child's own, mission in life.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, and your
Yeah.
children are 8, 6, and
10.
10. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
interesting.
Yes, and it's so fun to just watch everybody learn together and grow together. I have to say, I've done a lot of things in my life, but there has been nothing more rewarding than homeschooling with my kids. And more importantly, I don't like to be a teacher to my kids because I feel like a teacher is somebody who stands up at the front, lectures you, and just, calls it good. I like to be a mentor to my kids. And what is a mentor? A mentor is a person who is an example and who helps guide you along the way through examples, through, suggestions and um, you know, what can we do to help move you along? What can we do to, what do you need type of thing? Um, and that's really how we're going to get our kids to be educated, which is more important than teaching, because I feel like learning and teaching kind of is an outward thing, whereas wanting an education comes from within the child. And so if you inspire them to want that education and help them to realize that learning is fun, then they're going to always want to learn and they're going to want to continue learning through the rest of their lives. Like I said, I'm not seasoned or anything, but I have these kids that I'm watching as we're doing these things and trying to inspire them to want to learn. Um, and it's just you see that light bulb go on, and I haven't seen it go out yet. And I hope it never goes out. But I feel like we do these little things and it's not going to go out. They're going to want to continue.
Because can you really teach them everything that they could possibly need to know in life? And so if they are inspired to keep learning and they love it, and you just inspire that, and then with your own enthusiasm, I can see that you have so much enthusiasm, and that is really infectious, and they want to, you know, they pick that up, and they realize that it's great to learn, then they'll continue to learn on their own.
Hmm. Definitely. Yes. Yes, and another thing I just thought of is for parents who, especially because I know a lot of the newer homeschoolers are doing online stuff. And those are really hard. Like the worksheets are really hard to get, the kids inspired to sit in front of a video and watch
I
the
can
video. Um,
distinguish things, right? It's a
yes,
of learning.
exactly. So I almost kind of want to challenge them to maybe take a step and go, okay, can I break away from the internet learning and try something else that's going to want to get my child to learn something else and to learn to educate themselves? Because I'm I learn best actually in online classes. I do only online classes I have through my entire college education. Um, in fact, I did not do very well in high school or junior high. I failed through everything. I just was really awful at it. And so I found that the best thing for me was learning online, but it's because I can take control of my own education and I can be the one to teach myself as I go. But I had to learn that for myself. These young children, they don't want it for themselves right now. They're not really interested in,
They don't
again,
know.
it doesn't relate to me. Why do I even care? I'm never gonna want to learn about why Lewis and Clark came across and discovered this part. That's not a lot of that stuff can be interesting to kids, but it's not super interesting to kids at certain ages. And so I really challenge those parents that are doing that to try and maybe break away, even if it's one subject at a time, and say, look, let's try something else that maybe might help you want to learn something new.
Yeah. Yep. I think that those are really wise words. Um, so we are getting pretty close to I guess finishing up. Do you have some final thoughts that you would like to say?
I guess if anything, um, I am like very proud of every parent that takes the step to try and homeschool their children because it is a huge step. Um, one thing that I love about it is just being with my children. And I just think that any parent that can spend the time with them and enjoy their time with them homeschooling, you're going to do great. If you are working with your children and if you are loving them, and even if all you do is read a couple of books a day or read a chapter book a day and go over a math problem or something, your children are going to be learning. They're going to be continually growing. I know that it's a very scary thought. Homeschooling is very scary because I have my entire children's lives, like their entire educational lives on my
Right?
shoulders. But really, you have to take a step back and go, look at the basic things. If you are going to teach them anything, teach them to love learning. And the only way you can do that is to inspire them. Because if you do that, they will always want to learn. And all of those things that they might have, quote unquote, missed in school, right? Um, they're going to learn about through reading. They're going to learn about on their own if they're interested in it.
I
And
think that's
so,
important.
yes, I mean, really just keep trudging along and know that if you're doing one thing every single day, you're doing the best that you can and you're doing great and your kids are going to learn. They're going to grow.
Well, thank you, Tasha. These have been such wise words, um, and a voice from experience that has been in the trenches. And I am really grateful that you said that you agreed to join us
Mhm.
um, tonight, and just really appreciate you and your insight.
Thank
So thank you so much for being
you.
here, and thanks to everyone who has been on tonight, who's been watching, and for those of you that will watch later. I hope this has been really helpful for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.